Welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. I'm Brenda Winkle, energetic leadership guide, psychic medium, and somatic coach for ambitious leaders who know their gifts are real and who want to stand fully in them. Here, you'll learn how to trust your intuition, embody your vision, and step into the freedom you've been craving, all without chasing more certifications or carrying stuff that does not belong to you. Every week, I'll share powerful practices and conversations with thought leaders and changemakers that help you transform your vision into embodied confidence, claim your gifts without apology, and lead with both clarity and freedom. Because your gifts aren't cute, they're powerful, they're real, and they're needed. Start today by downloading my free energy audit at brendawinkle.com/audit. It's the exact tool I use to track what's fueling me and what's draining me. It will help you discern between that hit of achievement and true joy so that you can lead with more clarity and impact. This is your space to stop proving, start embodying, and live fully in your gifts. Welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. Hello, and welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. Let's see. Just make sure. Okay, one more time. Hello, and welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. I'm your host, Brenda Winkle. This week, I had one of those experiences where I knew it and I still overrode it. And I want to talk about it because I want to normalize that this is what it's like to be an empath. There are going to continue to be moments where your empathy overrides your intuition, where your empathy overrides your normal boundaries, your normal standards. And if you've ever had that feeling like, I can't believe I fell for this thing, this episode is for you. So I want to share a little bit of background around the story so that you can really relate to this, because even though the actual story might be different from something that you've experienced in your life, I think you're going to relate to what happened. So if I paint the picture, you know that we lost my daughter's dog, Jane, about a week ago, and it has been a difficult several weeks as we've been navigating Bentley's health issues. That's my dog, and his anxiety and his reactivity. And then Jane was declining, and it was just stressful. And it's important to name this because as much as I tend to my own energy, as much as I'm careful about making sure that I'm as resourced as possible, rested, hydrated, nourished, there are some periods in life where we're not as resourced as we want to be because we're recovering from something, we're healing from something. And this is one of those moments for me. And I recognized that I needed some more support. And so I reached out to a local Facebook group with around 10,000 female business owners. And I asked for recommendations for cleaning companies and asked, maybe some of you might own a cleaning company. And I had many, 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 many people respond and refer different companies and individuals. And there was one person who DM'd me. And instead of commenting on the post, this person sent me a little message that said, would you be open to a walkthrough of your house? And keep in mind, I'm not fully resourced. I'm feeling tender. I'm feeling stressed. I'm worried about the dogs. I'm thinking about all the things we maybe need to be doing. And when this message came in, it hit my system as like, oh, somebody is willing to reach out and support me. Oh, this feels so good. And I'm not saying that's a red flag, but it's definitely a yellow flag when you have asked for one thing. I asked for people to, tag the people they recommend. and this person DM'd me. Now, under normal circumstances, honestly, I would probably have ignored it because of what I just said. I had asked, please share your references, your recommendations. I was willing to invest in this because I knew I needed support. Like, I don't know if you downloaded the podcast episode last time, the one on identity. If you did and you downloaded it in the first 24 hours, you might want to refresh that because I uploaded the wrong episode. And so I actually had to take it down and re upload the correct episode. So if you listened to it and you thought, gosh, this seems like maybe we've already talked about this and she's talking about February, it's because I uploaded the wrong episode, which is pointing to the reason why I knew I needed support. Okay. So in that moment, I literally was a little bit more vulnerable, but I knew it. And so I was ready to invest in support, getting some help around the house. So this individual came to my home and their energy was lovely, very, very lovely. A couple things struck me as odd. One was they arrived early, and I mean like 15 minutes early, which is not typical. And even if you arrive early for a business meeting, you typically just wait until it's time. So that was one other little yellow flag that I ignored. This was a cleaning company, and this individual was dressed in pastel linen pants and a white top. And I thought, oh, very, very dressed up to run a cleaning company. And the other thing that struck me as just a little bit like, but I ignored was that this individual arrived in a vehicle that was being driven by her partner. So her partner waited in the car while she came inside. And by the way, this is a legitimate company. They have a really beautiful website. They are bonded and insured. And so all the things looked okay. But I'm telling you some red flag or yellow flag things that I ignored. We start walking through the house. And this is the other thing I ignored. Bentley, my dog, did not want anything to do with her. He barked the entire time. And every time she looked at him, he would bark. Now, he is reactive, he is anxious, but typically he likes people. And typically he wants to at least engage with people. And he kind of operates under the assumption that people are going to give him treats. And so he likes people. His real stressor is other dogs. So this again should have been a flag to me. But I was feeling vulnerable. I was vulnerable because I was under resourced. I was needing help. I was needing support. Oh, I feel emotional. I just needed some help. And so we looked at the second floor of my home, which is the living area. And then we came up to the third floor, which is where my office and my room are. And we were looking around, and of course, I've got all of my oracle and tarot cards and all my crystals because I don't know if you know this, but I am a practicing psychic medium and I hold sessions on the regular, like dozens of sessions per week. And so she asked about that, and I said, "Well, yeah, there's that, and I have some things that are protective that are not conventional that most people don't have in their homes as a way to protect energy. And I'm not going to tell you what those are because I want to maintain that protection. And we were going through my office, moving into the room, and she said, "I want to know more about what you do." And so I told her what I did or what I do, and that I work with people one-on-one and in groups, especially people who have high levels of empathy and compassion, helping you to live the lives you want, set the boundaries, do the thing, show up in the visibility, whatever it is. And she said, I've been looking for a coach. And I was like, oh, great. Yeah, yeah, I could definitely help you out. And she said, what would you think about a trade? where I trade you house cleaning with my company for coaching. And under normal circumstances, when I was fully resourced, I would have declined instantly and instead offered to just do a trade for our cash exchange for whatever the exchange would be. But again, keep in mind, I'm feeling raw, I'm feeling vulnerable, I'm not fully resourced, and it felt like I was being taken care of in a way, right? Like, oh, this thing just dropped into my lap. And yet I have all these signs, the clothes, the car, the early, the Bentley. I have all these signs that there's something off. And then I have a rule. I teach this to my clients. We don't trade, we pay cash. We don't trade, we pay cash because it always gets messy in a trade. And there are very, very, very few people who I would trade with. And they are all people I know. I would never trade with somebody that I have just met because I don't have an established relationship or established trust. So I am surprised that I agreed to the trade. But I agreed to the trade and I put together an addendum to my terms and conditions for my coaching, my one-on-one coaching contract that outlined the trade. And she agreed to the addendum. But because the way I have my website set up, the actual terms and conditions are something you sign when you start the coaching packages. And so she'd agreed to the addendum, but not to the coaching package yet. And what she told me was that I needed to pay cash for, not cash, or it could have been card, didn't matter, but I needed to pay money for the initial deep clean. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Now, in the back of my mind, I'm cataloging all of these things. I'm cataloging, I don't usually trade, all the things I've already mentioned, and still I agree to it. And even though she hadn't yet clicked the link on my website, I went ahead and booked her company and paid for the initial clean, which was not inexpensive. And the initial clean was completed earlier this week, and they did a really beautiful job. And after the clean, I reached back out to the founder and said, really impressed with your team. Let's get you started on the coaching. Here's the link again in case you need it. And the reply was, oh, no, I'm not going to be able to trade. Business is just not going very well. I'm not going to be able to trade. And I just froze. I felt a flash in my body of heat and anger and rage, first at her, first at like, how could you do this? This feels like a bait and switch. It feels like you got me to agree to work with your company under the premise of we were going to be trading and now you're changing the terms. Absolutely not. This is not okay. I was really angry, really upset. And then I was upset with myself that I even had agreed to the trade in the first place. And so I reached out. I said, this is not what we agreed to. And this does not feel like an agreement that I'm going to continue to co-sign on. We talked about doing this and I laid out XYZ. And I see that we have two options at this point. We can either continue the agreement that we had already made and that you had already signed, or we can cut ties because I'm not going to work with somebody that I can't trust. And she came back with, well, I never meant to make you feel taken advantage of, which is the I never meant to make you feel. That is not an apology, by the way. That is well, I was hoping you wouldn't notice. That's what that means. So when somebody says, I was never trying to make you feel this, it was, I hoped you wouldn't notice my bad behavior. And I initially was like, okay, we can talk about starting later because that was her request. And then I slept on it and I thought, okay, let's look at all the red and yellow flags. Let's look at how I was feeling. And I thought about what would I do if one of my clients came to me with this exact scenario? What would I say to them? And I thought about that. And so I did what I would have coached any of my clients to do. And I went back to her and I said, this is not aligned. I cannot work with this energy. I won't work with clients with this energy. And we need to end our connection right now. And I no longer want to work with you or your company. And I'm wishing you all the best as you work to grow your business. And, she had asked me for referrals because things aren't going well for her business. And I really do wish her all the best as she grows her company. This is not about her. This is about what it's like to be an empath and the ways in which we agree to things we don't want to do that we know aren't aligned because our empathy overrides our intuition. And I want to really emphasize here, nothing dramatic happened, but something felt off from the very beginning. And I call this awareness like, oh my gosh, I should have known. I call it the empathy hangover. This is that feeling that you get after you override your intuition because you could feel and understand the other person more clearly than you could feel and understand what was happening for you. The empathy overrides the intuition. So the sequence usually is you feel the nudge. There's something like there's something off here. You can't really define it. It's not a glaring red flag. It's nothing that would immediately cause you to say no, but it's something. And then you rationalize it. You tell yourself, oh, it's not that big a deal, or I don't want to be judgmental, or that's mine. I don't want to be judgmental, or you rationalize it. And then what happens is you begin to prioritize their situation and you override yourself. And then you later end up in this pattern of regret and then frustration and the feeling of, I can't believe it happened again. This is incredibly common for empathic, emotionally intelligent humans. It's very, very common. And I'll say it hasn't happened to me in a long time because I do this work with so much commitment and so much practice, but it still happens to me. I'm not immune. I always say, and I absolutely mean it, I teach this work because I need this work. And I want to really offer a reframe here. This has nothing to do with lack of awareness. That's not the problem. It's over-accommodation and nervous system patterning. So when you are depleted or under-resourced or feeling raw or just needing some support, it puts us at risk of using our empathy instead of our intuition. Empathy is a good thing. I've said that over and over and over on the podcast, and I mean it. Empathy is a very good thing, but we can't replace our intuition with our empathy. Because if we do, we'll end up doing things like I just did. Like that cost me a lot of money. That mistake cost me a lot of money and a lot of bandwidth. And I didn't have the bandwidth to give because now I don't trust the company. So I'm still looking for a cleaning service in the Portland area. So the cost here is not just money. It's not just time. It's that it's costing you bandwidth you already don't have. And if you are not really cued into the tools to use, the nervous system regulation tools, the somatic tools, the energetic tools, it can lead to an erosion of self-trust where you feel like you can't trust yourself because you have this narrative that goes on like, oh my gosh, it happened again. Every single time you override that nudge, that little knowing, that little like, can't explain the feeling of this little yellow or red flag, but I know it's there. Every time you override that nudge, you teach yourself that you can't trust yourself. And that's why it feels the way it feels. That's why it feels so heavy and so bad. And that's why you feel so much shame about it. I want you to know this is your gift. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. When this happens to you, it is not because you are weak. It is not because you don't know enough. It's not even because you don't have the right boundaries. It's usually a case that you're under-resourced or that you have some nervous system patterning that makes this familiar thing feel safer, even though it's not actually safe. And so the hard truth here is I wasn't manipulated. I wasn't manipulated. I overrode my own gut check. I talked myself out of it. And this is probably what's happening for you too. If you relate to everything we've talked about in this episode, you aren't being manipulated. You're overriding your own gut check. So this is really, really important shift. This is, in fact, this is the shift. We don't want to go into these situations or come out of these situations with, this is never going to happen to me again. That is not realistic. Obviously, this just happened to me and I've been teaching this for 12 years. So the never make this mistake again is not something we want to hitch our wagons to. Instead, what I invite you to do is to work to repair your self-trust in real time. And here's what that looks like. Notice the feeling of resentment, and usually that's a key that something is happening. Resentment or that feeling of lack of trust. Like there's something about this I don't trust. Just notice that. And then give yourself a moment of pause. Actually pause before you push through. Because if I would have allowed myself the pause, even in the moment in the conversation when she's walking through my home, noticing the cards and crystals, hey, do you want to trade? If I would have paused, if I would have said, let me get back to you on that tomorrow, I would have had a very different answer than I had in that moment because I was just rolling with it in real time. So the pause is really important. And then I say this all the time inside my containers, my group coaching, my membership, even my private one-on-ones. You have the right to change your mind. You can revisit the decision and say, I've been thinking about this and it actually doesn't feel aligned. Or I've slept on this and I'm not comfortable with moving forward. You can change your mind. You can choose a different direction. Even in the same agreement, you can choose a different direction. And I say this because there was an older version of me that, let's say, if we would have taken the exact situation with the cleaning company, if we would take that exact situation, she broke her word. Oh, hey, I can't do the trade. I'm just going to do you cash, have you pay for everything. And then maybe I'll work with you as a one-on-one client down the road. There would be a version of me in the past that would have said, oh, okay, yeah, we can make that work. And I would have just sucked it up and I would have paid and I would have been resentful and pissed. And then I wouldn't have trusted them. And then next thing you know, I'm not happy with them and it's taking me bandwidth and time because I would feel hyper vigilant every time they were coming to my house, every time they were in my house, and every time they left my house because you don't trust them. So this time was really different because as soon as I realized what had happened, I named, this doesn't feel good. This is not what we agreed to. You have broken your word, called it out. There was a little bit of acknowledgement around that. And then a sort of a loose promise of, yeah, I'll come through maybe in June. And then a realization that, wait a minute, the one-on-one work that I do is the highest, it's the highest work I do. It is the most intimate. It is the highest level way to work with me. It is by application only. It is people that I know are willing and ready to do the one-on-one work that we do. It's people that I know I can trust to be transparent. Because if you can't be transparent, it's going to be really difficult for us to move you through any kind of transformation. Because if you're lying about what you're feeling or what you're experiencing, For me, I can track it. I can track that there's a lie, but it's not going to be possible for me to move you through things you're not willing to admit to yourself. So when I took it back into my own empowerment and I'm thinking about, is this a client I would have wanted? The answer was no. Absolutely not, because I require transparency and self honesty from my clients because they need to have a certain level of self awareness in order to work with me. We have to keep it energetically clean in order for the energy to actually flow, whether I'm working with a founder and we're tracking energy of her company and her personnel, or whether I'm working with an individual and we're working on her own empathic abilities and traits and helping her to set the boundaries so that she can take care of herself and be more resource in her life. Whatever that is, there has to be trust. There has to be. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And so when I got real with myself on that, I was like, well, this is obviously a no. Why would I take up one of my coveted one on one spaces with somebody who is not trustworthy and is willing to not be honest? I wouldn't. And so that's why I just ended the agreement cleanly, like with no guilt. Like, I'm not even mad. I spent the money on the house cleaning after Jane died here a couple weeks ago or a week ago. It needed to be cleaned anyway. And so that felt really good. And so I don't regret it. But here's the question that I'd like to ask you. Are you someone who over accommodates, over empathizes, feels really almost confused about what your emotions are and what their emotions are? Or are you someone who can still track those emotions with that deep empathy and stay with yourself? And it's not even a question of are you someone who can do those things? It's do you have the skills to know how to stay with yourself in those moments? And this is the kind of thing we practice inside the Empowered Empath Collective membership. It's not just understanding it because we can intellectualize this all the live long day. But until we actually practice it and catch it while it's happening and then choosing something different in real time, it can continue. And for some of you, this kind of a pattern doesn't shift just by hearing it. And it might be that we need to completely take you out of your normal environment so you can really connect with yourself again. In fact, I recommend that every year anyway. And that's a big part of the reason why I offer retreats is to give people that opportunity to step away from their normal life so they can hear themselves again. So the Ignite retreat is it's currently on a wait list, but I'm going to open up applications. And this retreat is going to be immersive, meaning you're going to really feel like you are in a new, supportive, loving, nurturing environment where you can hear yourself again. It's going to be pattern breaking and identity shifting. This is the retreat where we're going to collapse the time it takes to shift these kinds of patterns. So, right now, as I'm recording this episode, it's currently on a wait list, but I am going to open up applications for that, and there will only be 10 spots. And on the application form, I'm going to have a box where you can check if you'd prefer the retreat to be in September or in March, because there will likely be two based on the information that I'm gathering from people. And so you can tell me which one would be better for you, fall of 2026 or March of 2027. So I have some reflection questions for you before we close today so you can get really clear with what your patterns might be and how to come back from that empathy hangover if that happens to you. And so I have four questions that you can reflect on. If you want to write them down, this is your chance. Number one, where did I know and override? I'll say that again. Where did I know and override? Number two, what did I feel in my body? And when I'm asking this question, I'm asking about any sensation, feeling that you noticed. Maybe it's you felt warm or cool or tense or relaxed or stomach ache or whatever. So number 2 is, what did I feel in my body? Number 3, what did I tell myself to get myself to stay in that situation? What was the story? Number 3, what did I tell myself to stay in that situation? What was the story? And number 4, the last question, what would it look like to choose differently next time? That's number 4 again. What would it look like to choose differently next time? So you don't need to become less empathetic. That is not even the goal. I don't want you to be less empathetic. I want you to use your deep empathy and compassion as you continue to show up in the world. We need that. You need to become someone who doesn't abandon herself inside of empathy. Thank you so much for listening to your Yes Filled Life podcast. We've been asked to apply for the Signal Awards, which I haven't yet decided if I'm going to do, but I know it's because of listeners like you. Thank you for leaving the podcast your ratings and reviews. If you haven't done that for a while, please go do it right now. It takes just a second. If you're not sure how to do it, you can Google it or use your AI and ask how to leave a rating and review. The only place you can leave the actual sentence reviews is Apple Podcasts, but you can leave comments on Spotify, and you can just leave a rating on some of the other platforms. And if this episode resonated with you, would you please share it with someone you care about who you think also might sometimes have empathy hangovers? Thanks so much for listening. Bye for now. Until next time.